Y'all remember Armie Hammer? This was a man who seemed primed for an explosive blowout in Hollywood. A dysfunctional but rich family who Hammer himself has compared to Succession, and a string of exceptional roles in movies like The Social Network, The Man from U.N.C.L.E., and Call Me By Your Name seemed to set him up for a stratosphere-level explosion in the 2020s. And then the allegations hit. His divorce, a sexual assault, drug use, emotional manipulation, and perhaps weirdest of all, a cannibalism fetish, potentially? But as the news and allegations slowly died down, and as the news cycle moved on to other things, I was left thinking now, 6 years later, what exactly happened to Armie Hammer? Is this new movie any good? Is he truly a weird elitist Hollywood celebrity piece of filth, or is he just perhaps a misunderstood product of his odd family? Come with me as we go through the hilariously bad and unhilariously racist film that is Armie Hammer's big return to screen and what led up to it. Citizen Vigilante. Now, in order to understand just why Citizen Vigilante is so bad, we have to understand how Hammer actually got there in the first place. When the pandemic hit and Hammer was out of work, he did what every rich Hollywood celebrity with a family he loved that no longer had to work was. No, not play with his kids and love his adorably, incredibly attractive wife who loved him. He sold timeshares. You know, those things that are highly shady and scammy. He was really doing a lot to help his marriage, which was rocky at best, and it's no surprise that the allegation time was shortly after his wife divorced him. But good old Armie was still committed to his job. Did I mention that this is also all in the Cayman Islands? You know, that place which is highly shady and scammy for tax purposes. Hammer wasn't just selling timeshares though, he was living in a hotel and also being an apartment manager. Remember this, it's going to be important in the movie. But when Hammer couldn't get work permits to continue his sleazy job, he went back to LA to try and make his living back as an actor. A dream which once had seemed so easy was now much, much harder given the allegations and the COVID-19 pandemic. Now a couple years after all of this and rehab, Hammer gives one of his first large public interviews about the allegations, and here's where I think we begin to see that this man is horrendously awful at public relations without a great PR person to help him out. See, on one hand, Hammer says that all of these allegations were actually all consensual BDSM relations, which would lead one to believe at least that he was well versed in the kink scene and knows exactly what he's doing in power dynamics, etc. But in the same interview, he also claims that he wasn't aware of the power imbalance that was inherently present with him being a successful, rich, physically strong, and dominating celebrity and being with a woman. So, which is it? You can't have your rib and eat it too. Either he knew what he was doing was wrong and he did it anyway, which I wouldn't be surprised about, or he should have known better because all of it was consensual. If you dig a little deeper, you can also find this article from Vanity Fair from 2021, which details all sorts of problems with Hammer's family and their legacy. But it also recontextualizes some of Hammer's past comments, like how one time he talks about this girl trying to stab him while he was having sex, or how his wife effectively said he leans heavily into violent, dangerous behavior. Remember this as well, it's also going to be important later. On the topic of his wife and Boykin, apart from being a cheater who had extramarital affairs, Hammer also said that at one point he got a lot more vanilla when he married his wife because he quote-unquote respected her too much to do those things to her, which is effectively him spelling out that all of the stuff he did to these other women, whether consensual or not, was clearly a power thing where he enjoyed disrespecting them and doing these crazy things to them, which is even more proof that he is actually aware of the power dynamics at play. So Hammer's looking for work, he stars in one movie as a cameo role that mostly falls under the radar. Apart from that, what's he filling his time with? The Armie Hammer Time podcast. What is it with these guys who go through scandals and start a podcast? Now, I was curious, so I clicked, and it's billed as Hammer sitting down with extraordinary people from all walks of life as he rebuilds his own. And below that, don't worry, we feed him before every episode. Surely Hammer isn't making fun of his allegations, right? I mean, surely he's smart enough to know that not only is it incredibly disrespectful if the allegations against him are true, but even if they aren't, it's nothing short of weird? Well, I'll take a listen to a few episodes on YouTube and... oh, page not found. That's odd. Okay, what about Spotify? Oh, okay, page also not found. It's weird, you would think that he would leave it up so people could see that he has actually changed as a person. Well, maybe any of these other ones? No. Ah, finally, we get one that works. And... oh. Okay, I guess we'll never know what rebuilding his life looks like. So to recap, Hammer was working as an apartment owner and real estate kind of guy. He has a lot of weird fantasies, but claimed he wasn't aware of the power dynamics, but now he is and he's better about them. He has some kind of narcissistic personality and or anger issue, and he's been blacklisted from Hollywood. But hope is on the horizon when Uwe Boll announces his new movie, The Dark Knight, and Hammer is later cast as the lead role. A true acting comeback for him. They later changed the name for copyright reasons, but this film is clearly trying to rip off Batman. Now, the film is directed by Uwe Boll, a director famous for calling people the R-word,
not a fucking retard like Michael Bay or other people running around in that business,
challenging critics to boxing matches, and directing a string of bad video game adaptations, which, when poorly received, he blamed on the game studios for not helping the production out. The film gained prominence when Elon Musk, former cool inventor now turned Nazi sympathizer, posted the film on Twitter after it was banned in Germany, the country that Boll made it in, for potentially promoting the violence and killing of immigrants. Now, in some ways, the match of Hammer and Boll is a match made in heaven. Hammer joined in on this production very early on, and while he doesn't have a producer role listed, I'd be confident in saying he certainly had a hand creatively in the filmmaking. In a strange way, both of these men were shamed and ridiculed out of Hollywood only to team up together in an attempt to reinvent themselves, and their attempt is bad. First off, removing all subtlety or hint of nuance, we get a quote to start our film off: "All behavior can be traced back to instincts. When justice is denied, instincts turn to vengeance." Now, you'll notice that this quote is attributed to Anonymous, and I'd bet good money on this just being some bullshit that Armie Hammer or Boll made up, something that sounds interesting and tough, but really doesn't actually mean that much beneath the surface. Really, Boll is just using this as an excuse to somewhat justify why wanting to kill people of color and racism is okay. We see a mom and her son shopping for groceries, and the mom is later murdered. Boll is trying to show a typically expected suburban, idealistic type existence and how it can be changed in an instant by murder, but his execution of it is incredibly tacky and ham-fisted. Instantly, the music turns so intently sinister, and we see this person appear out of nowhere, holding just a knife and nothing else, do this janky stab and then run off and attack these other people, sitting politely. The person shows no sign of aggression or being on drugs beforehand, and also these shots at the beginning feel so awkward. The cashier doesn't say anything. It's just weird silence as they bag groceries. We get a cut after this to the news segment, and Hammer and Boll's film makes it a whole 3 minutes and 45 seconds for showing its hand as the racist film it wants to be. The news anchor sets up the world as being so terrifying people are afraid to go outside after dark for fears of being attacked.
Parents were afraid to let their children play outside, and many women avoid venturing out after dark altogether.
Big surprise, the attacker was an undocumented migrant. The police aren't doing anything to stop them, so it's up to Hammer's character, Sanders, the citizen vigilante, to do it for them. Here is where we also begin to get this very weird international message. See, the film is set in Germany and focused on German characters and migrants, but it very clearly wants to try and appeal to international audiences, so everyone in it speaks in thick German accents, but they're speaking English, and to bridge the gap, this film shows all of these segments of fake Instagram videos with these weird graphics of people praising citizen vigilante, to make the film seem more Americanized and try to bring the focus to US immigration instead. Perhaps most funny though is that these entire segments have literally no bearing whatsoever on the plot. Hammer's character records and posts these videos with a very terrible blurring effect that would make it quite obvious it was him, and seems to try and inspire his followers to take the fight into their own hands. And we can see the responses from other places in the world.
This man is taking out the trash. I think we need somebody over here in the States like that.
But at the end of the film, there isn't any payoff to it, which makes it so abundantly clear that Hammer and Boll are just putting these scenes in as sounding boards for their own thoughts and opinions. It'd be the equivalent to the news broadcasts in Disclosure Day not having any impact on the plot, or a voiceover narration for Lord of the Rings being about breakfast instead of history. We get one more talking head interview to introduce us to the supposed villain, a police captain doing his job, before moving back to Sanders. As Sanders travels towards an assault victim to get her permission to enact justice, we get quite possibly the stupidest scene in the entire movie. This group of hoodlum teenagers get on the bus and don't pay their fare, and when the bus driver gets mad at them, they tell him to fuck off.
Sit down and drive the fucking bus!
Which prompts our big boy citizen vigilante to step in. But guys, he's different. He doesn't need to beat these kids up. Instead, he pays the fee, which causes the bus driver to immediately change his tune.
2 times 3, 450. There you go. Let me just give you a change.
And then sits down to give them a lesson on economics and philosophy.
Who we are and what we do has ramifications in our lives.
Of course, his bare bones and incredibly basic speech is lost on these rebels, so he has to expand on his points.
If 10% doesn't pay, costs will go up 10% to cover the loss, and that's not fair.
His intelligence has no effect on them or anybody else here though, as the whole bus apparently doesn't have any reactions to what he's saying whatsoever. Leader Kid apparently doesn't like this and goes to pull his knife, which causes Hammer to pull out and brandish a firearm on the bus, pointed at the kid, who gives absolutely no reaction even to this. It's so fucking funny. I have no clue what emotion this kid is supposed to have on his face here. Is he stressed? Defiant? Also, if Sanders really wanted to help these kids out, he should have told them to subscribe to my YouTube channel, where you get new video essays every couple of weeks. Citizen Vigilante gets permission from this girl to hunt down her attackers.
Do you want justice?
But now we get to the most important piece of information when you compare it to Hammer's real life. See, Sanders in this movie is only citizen vigilante part-time. In his real life, he's a landlord. Yeah, his daytime job is literally running his father's inherited real estate business. He's like Bruce Wayne, but without, any of the selflessness. Later on, we get this scene where one of his advisors, and he's complaining that 10% of his tenants aren't paying rent on time.
10% of that is 5,040,000 euros that people are stealing from me.
No question as to any of their well-being, no use of this money or anything to try and uplift or understand these people. He just lumps all of them in as unacceptable and orders his advisors, who, by the way, are doing things the legal way, to get rid of them.
The government wants to seize empty units for housing migrants.
No.
We also get this short line about the government wanting to use them for migrant housing, which he shoots down, despite the fact that he himself is here in Germany illegally.
Since you are not a registered citizen here, nor did you enter the country legally.
That's right, according to his own advisor, he hasn't entered the country legally, which makes the already murky politics of this film even worse. Because, see, white American millionaire Sanders, citizen vigilante, is allowed to be in the country because he's doing something right. But the migrants who are fleeing from other countries and who the film portrays as all being evil and bad aren't. If Hammer was trying to be relatable here, it doesn't work. Because while I think we all agree that bad tenants are pretty bad, the fact that Hammer in real life was an apartment manager and here he is blatantly violating local laws and kicking people out en masse makes both the actor and the character seem even more dislikable. The terrible comparisons to Hammer's real life don't stop there though, as in another scene we can see him go to a prostitute to fulfill his sexual needs. While he doesn't immediately tell her that he owns the building, the fact that he does makes the power dynamics in this scene rough to watch. Everything we've seen and will come to see about this guy makes his character look like a villain. And while he's doing something I guess noble, his methods are often incredibly violent and cutthroat.
We went into their lane. Instead of just crossing the line and breaking the law and going into our lane, they went into a ditch and most likely died.
He fires most of his staff even though they're doing their job, subverts local laws in the sake of his own personal financial gain, and in this case, perhaps worse than the weird power dynamics play is that he stops everything to focus on this black mold. But is he stopping because this could be a health violation and cause the inhabitants to get sick? Probably not. Much more likely he cares because the property value could go down and it would cost more money to fix it. Also, while prostitution is legal in Germany, we hear this line about pimps.
What, do you think your pimps own the building?
Which that, along with the seedy-looking atmosphere, implies that this is probably not a legal brothel. Does Citizen Vigilante do anything to actually help get these people out of their bad state into higher-paying jobs? Of course not. Instead, he just lets her charge him like a normal client. What a nice guy. And herein lies one of my biggest problems with this movie. It's not just that it promotes violence as a solution, it's that it seems to present it as the only solution. One of the best parts about Batman as a character is that we see Bruce Wayne constantly funding other efforts to help the system systematically. It just so happens that Gotham is so corrupt that he can't fully fix it. But in Citizen Vigilante, Sanders doesn't do anything to help this corruption except beat up and kill people. We never see him try and use his money to help remove the systems in place which enable this injustice, nor do we ever see him use non-lethal or non-threatening interactions with an immigrant or a person of color. Everything can only be solved by violence for this guy. And without a wife or any other character that he seems to actually deeply care about, it leads the character feeling like a complete and utter psychopath. Perhaps the most egregious use of violence comes in the form of this police raid, where the police captain uses DNA from a club which Sanders was frequenting to track his address and location to storm him. We see an overly long scene of the SWAT team approaching Sanders' house where he's effectively created a kill box. He explains that they can leave and not die.
We'll be forced to kill you all.
Before opening fire on an entire team of at least 25 cops. He basically kills all of them and somehow just miraculously escapes after. Not only does this scene make no sense, since it would be way easier to apprehend Sanders in public since he has a physical place of work that he goes to from time to time, or even just wait for Sanders to eventually leave and starve in this box since we aren't shown any food or water, but it also reinforces the fact that Sanders isn't even a morally gray character. He's basically just killing all of these people for fun. The film ends by Sanders killing the judge that let the rapists go free and then going and killing a group of Muslims that assaulted the girl from earlier. Here is also where we get more of Sanders' thesis on his anti-immigration beliefs, and we get this line.
I don't think it was the good ones that got out of your country. I think it was the bad ones.
Which just doesn't make a lot of sense. The good people stayed in their war-torn countries because they wanted to stay and fix it, I guess? But that ignores the fact that in a lot of these countries, the choice is effectively to join the military or die. So of course people would want to leave. We also get this random line about the woke left for clicks.
This is an unfriendly takeover. Blindsided woke left.
and Citizen Vigilante is done. But as I sat with the end of this movie, I found myself wondering how we even got here at all. Why did Hammer, an actor who championed left-leaning politics in the past,
I would move to the Caribbean, start a jet ski rental business.
agree to do a movie where he is killing immigrants, exploiting his positions of power over prostitutes, and murdering people en masse? Well, remember when I said that we could never see what Hammer's rebuilding of his life looks like because we couldn't find anywhere to listen to the Armie Hammer Time podcast? I sort of lied. While the podcast is completely scrubbed from most platforms, there are still clips of it available in the form of Instagram and YouTube shorts. And boy oh boy, is it clear that Hammer's quote-unquote rebuilding his life is actually just making light of all of his past situations. One of the first clips I found was with Hammer's mother, which reinforced my belief that at least some of Armie Hammer's strangeness and behavior was probably due to his upbringing. His mom talks about finding out that their father was having an affair and how she stayed in the marriage because she didn't want them to not have a father. And Hammer is so emotionally stunted that he asks her if it was hard to carry all of this on their own.
Was that hard to carry that all on your own?
Oh my gosh, are you kidding?
Of course it was, Armie Hammer. You should know this, man. You saw your wife go through the divorce after you cheated on her. Also on the podcast, we can see many clips where Hammer and his guests downplay the allegations against him.
I'm not gonna lie, I kind of like the cannibal stuff now.
Are there any women out there with ribs or limbs missing?
Yeah.
That's what I want to know as a mother.
And while I do understand that humor can be a coping mechanism for people, I still think it's this weird thing where Hammer seems to almost take pride in the allegations against him now all of these years later.
I just recently was sent a script.
There's also this clip where Hammer is talking about getting a role in what I assume to be Frontier Crucible, the film released in 2025, where he talks about having to quiet his ego.
Is there a way that you kind of quiet your own ego?
And jokes that they're getting him for cheap. The jury is still out on some of the allegations against Hammer, but I do think that this, along with the other clips, goes to show that Hammer has not really changed as a person from who he was before. See this clip here.
I'm never gonna change. Like, tigers don't change their stripes, right? Like,
However, perhaps the most important clip on this whole page is this one.
I saw two of the most disturbing videos that I've ever seen in my life. The cumulative effect of both of those videos really disturbed me.
Where Hammer talks about the death of Charlie Kirk and seeing other violent media on his social media feeds. I think what happened here is Hammer fell deeper into this rabbit hole, isolated himself into believing that violent crime is on the rise, and jumped at the opportunity to make a movie where he could effectively play a version of how he sees himself with no inhibitions. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe and follow me on the socials down below, including Letterboxd, and I will see you all next time. Goodbye.